Good to see you. Good to see you. Senator Tim Moffitt has joined us.
Good to see you, Tim.
All right. Senator, would you like to say a few words of greeting?
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? So I'm Senator Tim Moffitt. I'm a recovering House member. I spent 7 years in the House with this fine gentleman here, and I had an opportunity to move to the Senate to really undertake this effort on behalf of all of our supporters statewide to see if we can overcome the roadblock in the Senate. And it's been an adventurous ride so far. So it's good to be here with y'all today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. So our illustrious team got together and we curated a few of the most popular questions from our grassroots supporters, and we thought it would be useful to ask those questions that we selected for you to answer. I'll start with you, Tim. Dennis. How did you first hear about COS?
Before I answer the question, I want to acknowledge one of my House colleagues in the very back, Representative Mark Brody, strong advocate of COS. All right. And then I want to give you all a suitable welcome. Hello, we the people. I think I can't talk anymore. We appreciate everybody being here. I first heard of Article 5 Convention of States at an ALEC conference. ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council, and they host several events throughout the course of a year and bring state legislators from across the country to one location, Washington or Denver, places like that, and hold seminars and workshops. And one of the workshops I attended had to do with Article 5 Convention of States. It was really the first time I had heard of it in its current manifestation. And on that panel were Mark Meckler, there he is, with man's best friend, and then there's a dog, and Mike Ferris was there, and a dear man, Senator Tom Coburn, and they presented to the group there that I was a part of Article 5 and how it would work and how it can work. And that was my introduction to COS, and I've been hanging on ever since.
Thank you. Yep. Tell us your story. How did you get to find out about COS in the first place?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, that wonderful hello, we don't do that in the Senate. But it's appreciate my former House colleague for welcoming you that way. So I will second that. My story is not too dissimilar, except there's just a little twist to it. ALEC, I found, was very informative regarding Article 5 and participating in the events around that at those particular conferences. But prior to my experience with ALEC, I had an opportunity to serve with Burt Jones. And Burt Jones is the person that introduced me to Article 5 Convention, the Convention of States. And he spearheaded the efforts for us in 2011. And his resolution was the first time that I actually experienced that and had an opportunity to vote for it.
That's great. Thank you. And I want to go back to Dennis's loud sound. And most of us who've spoken to or know of Representative Riddell regard him soft-spoken, very clearly. So I'm still recovering from the shock of that myself.
That's what happens when you give me a microphone.
Tim, I wanted to ask you, or we wanted to ask you next, your path to becoming our champion sponsor in the Senate.
Well, thank you for that question, and actually thank you to those activists that have lobbied on behalf of this effort and asking me to actually sponsor the resolution in the Senate. When I began my journey in the Senate, I guess a year and a half ago, each chamber adopts its own rules and how we're going to behave ourselves for the next biennium. And one of the rules that we had adopted in the Senate was a prohibition against resolutions. So we kind of had to navigate through that in order to make sure that we had within the rules an opportunity to file a resolution that we could actually take up and debate and hopefully pass. So after some debate, working with Mike Hager, wherever Mike is, where's Mike? Mike, former House colleague, former House Majority Leader, who's actually representing the Convention of States every day when he's here. We worked out a strategy where we could actually put the resolution together and go ahead and file it, and that's where we are today.
That's great. Thank you, Tim. Dennis, I wanted to ask you how did you what was your path to becoming a champion sponsor in the House? Because you've been leading this effort for a very, very long time.
Thank you, Simon. I'm not sure about being the leader of the Lone Ranger. There's no Lone Rangers in this effort of Convention of States. It is a necessary team effort from people from Alaska to Hawaii to Florida to Maine and little old North Carolina. But I was introduced, as I said, at an ALEC convention. That was back in 2014. And one of the other co-attendees was Representative Burt Jones. And he said, come on, let's sit down and let's start counting heads, how many people we think we can get to vote for the resolution on the House side. So we sat down and went through, did some math and realized it's going to be a bit of a push. We introduced it, I think in 2015, as I recall, and could not get it a hearing in the Judiciary Committee to which it was referred. Tried again in 2017, and we did get it out of the Judiciary Committee, but I don't think it went any further than that. And then 2019, we actually got it to the floor of the House, I believe, for a vote, which was defeated by 3 votes. So along this path, you learn a lot of things, and there's always a constant change out to membership in the House and the Senate. And we kept a real close tally as to who were the strong supporters of COS and tried to keep them on board, and then tried to reach out to our members and colleagues who were not necessarily convinced. I mean, you think of your path, each of you, we all have a different path to getting involved with Convention of States. For some people, it was right away. You heard about it, it made sense, it's in the Constitution, let's do it. Others, you had to read a little bit. Maybe you had to read a lot. Maybe you had to talk to some people. Maybe you were coached. Maybe people invested in you, and that brought you to the table. And that's how we've tried to do this in the legislature, is with your cooperation and your help, work on particular members who we believe just need more information. And as you go and speak to them, just a reminder, remember your senators and your representatives are people too, and they respond to kindness, they respond to grace, they respond to politeness. So as you go out and speak, remember those things, and that we need to have more people coming onto our team, not fewer.
Thank you. Thank you. Another interesting question, and I love this question, we're definitely going to ask each of you, is how do you get and engage your colleagues in your respective legislative chambers to get involved with this or any legislative initiative? Tim?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
That's actually a very tough question. Well, first of all, I think that a lot of folks, most folks that are here in Raleigh, are here to serve. And we're here to tackle the problems that we face as a state, and also tackle the problems that we face as a nation, and this is what part of this effort is. Most of us have a lot of things in common, and this is one of those things that we have in common. We believe in the fact that we are a representative republic. We believe that the federal government is out of control. Two words that we don't like to hear as lawmakers are federal preemption. And a lot of the things that we try to do to make our state a better state, the federal government interferes with that. So we recognize that the way that we address that is a couple of different ways. We address it through a Convention of States, but we also address it in regards to going after the Administrative Procedures Act, which is what's given the executive branch all this power over the legislative branch, which is the power of the people. So when it comes to talking to colleagues, we just have common ground. And we as advocates for this effort, we have an opportunity to bring it up. We speak about it. Having you folks here with your t-shirts, having the Liberty Llama here makes it very easy to bring it up in conversation and chat about it. But to Dennis's point, everybody here is a reflection of what our state looks like. They're people just like we are, and just because it's logical and it makes sense doesn't necessarily make it easy to get done. And I've got a marriage that demonstrates that, right? And my wife and I have 5 sons, and I can assure you that just because it's logical and makes sense does not necessarily win the day most of the time. So as you're here, as you're advocating, as you have been here, you know, day on day, week on week, month on month, stay in the fight, hold fast. It does take time. And although we've achieved it in the House a number of times in the last 14 years, I guess, we've only achieved it once in the Senate when the House didn't do it. And I know it's frustrating, but don't allow the frustration to defeat the purpose. The cause is worth the fight. Stay in there. And as Representative Rydell said, help us educate those folks that may have some resistance to calling a convention.
Question? Tim just gave you a very, very excellent and to the point summary. I'll just add a little bit, and that is we try to find out where the interests of our different members and colleagues are and how COS can tie in maybe to some of their interests. Most everybody here, conservative or liberal, or in the middle of the road, understands the federal government cannot possibly keep all the promises it has made. And it is on a trajectory to go off the rails. Now, how do you solve that? Well, I'm partial to a convention of states myself. But I think I think that's the best way to realign the power structure in Washington and each of our state capitals. So we try to find out what their interests are. We obviously aren't going to go in and punch somebody in the nose. We're going to try to punch them in the heart. Where is our country going? Is America worth saving? And what is the best path to do that?
Thank you, that's beautiful. I want to close with final thoughts from our great Senator Tim Moffitt here. Hopefully, given that he cannot tell us everything he knows, but to give us as much encouragement as we can and as much as we need right now, as we are on the cusp of getting this done in the Senate. Tim, can you share anything with our great supporters here today?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that when I grow up, I want to be as smooth as Representative Rydell here. He's so easy to listen to. I really appreciate our relationship, and I've always enjoyed his presentation of bills or this resolution in the House, because he just really is quite the charmer. So it's great. The Senate is, we're very close to being able to caucus this effort within the Senate Majority Caucus. We're probably, I would say, days, if not just a couple weeks away, to where this will be the subject that we debate within our ranks to determine its next step. And that's about as much as I can tell you at this point.
Thanks, sir. Give it up for Representative. Oh, one thing.
Sorry. I interrupted your applause. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
One final word. So this is my legislative computer, and I don't know if you can read that, but it says, who rules the rule makers? Who rules the rule makers? The answer to the question is what we started out with: we, the people. And we need to take charge. And how we do that is Article 5, Convention of States. And it doesn't hurt to have some prayers out there.
Amen.
I think that's probably the most effective thing we could all do, is to pray that God would give wisdom to those who are making decisions, to those who are the rule makers, to make decisions that please Him, first of all, and that are the best interests of our state and our nation.
Thank you. Please give it up for our great champion, Representative Dennis Rydell in the House, Senator Tim Moffitt.
My pleasure as always.
No.